A man participating in the water splashing festival suddenly lost control and pounced on innocent people like a beast. The whole street instantly became a mess. Although the military arrived as soon as possible, they were unable to stop the spread of the zombie virus. The only thing that can be done is to block the news and lie to the outside world that the sunken festival was attacked by a gunman. This is the latest Thai zombie drama released in 2025. Friends who like happiness must not miss it. The male protagonist Parra received a call from the police. There was a suspected fight in a hotel. He and his partner went to check first. Under the guidance of the boss, they arrived at the room where the crime occurred. As soon as they opened the door, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. The floor and walls of the room were stained with blood. A man was lying on the bed motionless. Parra stepped forward and confirmed that there was a bite mark on the man's neck. At this time, he had completely expired. His partner felt something was wrong. The boss clearly said that 2 people walked into the room, but there was only 1 body on the scene. At this time, there was a noise from behind the wine cabinet. The 2 men raised their guns and slowly approached. They saw a woman with vaginas all over her body crying. When other colleagues arrived at the scene, the woman finally regained her composure. At that time, she and her boyfriend were participating in the water splashing festival. Maybe it was because the weather was too hot. The girl suddenly felt dizzy, so her boyfriend took her to the hotel to rest. During the rest, the woman only remembered that she was very thirsty. When she woke up, she found that her boyfriend had died tragically on the bed. Parra's face was gloomy and she could tell at a glance that the other party was lying. She asked aloud if he had taken medicine. The woman shook her head instinctively, but looked away. She remembered that her boyfriend once gave her a small pill. When she returned to the hotel, she drank water desperately until her boyfriend noticed something was wrong and came to check. Veins appeared on his back, and he rushed towards his boyfriend uncontrollably. The screams attracted the attention of the hotel owner, so he immediately called the police. After watching the surveillance video repeatedly, he always felt that this was something weird. Just as he was about to go back and study slowly with the surveillance camera, a man who looked like an army officer blocked the way. The other party claimed to be from a mysterious force and asked Parra to hand over surveillance and block all information. Parra was about to refuse the call from the police chief, asking him to cooperate with all the officer's requests. Parra found the chief as soon as he returned. He thought this case was very strange. An ordinary woman could not kill an adult man. However, the director ignored it because the senior officials had already ordered that similar cases should be transferred to the military. Parra looked at the officer in front of him, very puzzled. He wanted to know how the military was going to deal with the female suspect. The officer said out of nowhere that he must be isolated first. Then he offered an olive branch to Parra because he was the best police officer in the department. Parra turned around and left without agreeing to borrow his business card. He finally made it to get off work. He immediately made an appointment with his friend Adawn to express his concerns. The 2 graduated from the same police academy and now work together. Whenever he encounters any difficulties when investigating the case, Parra will consult Adawn immediately. He tells the story of the murder that happened today. However, this time, for the first time, Adawn does not expose the investigation because he also encountered bad things today. Dan and his dependent father lived in a dilapidated apartment building, with neighbors and dragons mixed in. The environment was very bad. Suddenly, a woman's cry for help came from outside the door. It turned out to be a drunk neighbor who was drunk and crazy again. As a policeman, Adawn had a strong sense of justice and stepped forward to lean on the drunk man. He was about to comfort the neighbor's eldest sister with a few words. His old father suddenly ran over to stop him. He thought that Adawn was too lenient. This was someone else's private matter, and there was no need to get involved. Adawn finally couldn't help but express what he had been holding in his heart for a long time. How about we move somewhere else? The environment here is too bad. However, the old father refused without thinking because he didn't want Adawn to be burdened with huge debts at such a young age. Adawn knew that he could not persuade Barbarian's father, so he could only run over to talk to Paula Avenue. As soon as he went to work the next day, Adawn received a report. He and his senior brother rushed to the scene and found that the perpetrator was his own sinner. The other neighbor hurt a colleague. At this time, he held his wife hostage to prevent the police from approaching. Adawn stepped forward and tried to distract the drunk man, but unexpectedly, the neighbor's eldest sister, who had always been weak, suddenly bit the drunk man. Adawn kicked his legs and removed the opponent's weapon. Rokenhan fought back with all his strength and fled the scene, but before he could run a few steps, he was knocked down by his wife. Adawn slowly approached in surprise and saw the neighbor's sister twisting her body. When he turned around, he had turned into a human monk. Fortunately, the senior brother had quick eyesight and quick hands to push away the days of Adawn. However, the eldest sister was as agile as the wind. In an instant, he was at Adawn's feet. Adawn fell to the ground and was struggling desperately. Suddenly, the gunshot rang out. It turned out to be the senior brother, who came in time to support him. After several rounds of bullets were fired, the eldest sister was held tightly. 2 people were preparing to take him back to the police station. The mysterious military force appeared again. They didn't even say hello and started cleaning up the scene extremely skillfully. The senior brother accidentally found a red pill in the corner and quietly stuffed it into his pocket. Adawn was very curious about where they were taking the neighbor's sister. The adjutant did not answer, but stared at the wound on her neck, and then said in a cold tone that Adawn also had to go to the treatment center for isolation. The woman felt extremely relieved, but she still followed the military vehicle to a suburban building. This place had long been occupied by the military. It must be the treatment center mentioned by the adjutant. After many checks, Adawn came to the infirmary to collect samples for testing. He naively thought he could go home, but then he was told that he would have to be quarantined here for 24 hours. Adawn really couldn't figure out why he only suffered a little skin injury, and it looked like he was infected with the contempt virus. But he really couldn't resist the cold face of the adjutant and could only follow the guards through the iron gates. Finally walking into a small independent ward, the adjutant said that he could leave tomorrow without infection. Adawn suddenly realized that he was likely to become a blood-loss monster like his neighbor's sister. He suddenly felt that the whole room seemed ghostly, especially because there were still little blood stains on the walls. It's hard to imagine what the previous tenant here went through. What he didn't know was that there were countless suspected infected people detained in this building, and most of them had fallen into a state of madness. Parra, on the other side, did not obey the director's order, but secretly investigated the hotel homicide. A test on the female suspect found that her blood contained drug components. The testing center has not yet given an answer as to what the specifics were. However, that night she received news from her senior brother. A drunken murder case during the day was also related to this drug. Early the next morning, Parra drove to the isolation center in the suburbs based on the address on the mysterious officer's business card. He immediately found the man and took out the red pill picked up by his senior brother. Parra was almost convinced the officer must be familiar with this drug, because it has appeared in several murder cases he has intervened in. The officer simply showed off directly. This drug can make people infected with the madman virus. In the early stages of the disease, people will feel thirsty and will lose consciousness. He will only retain his original bloodthirsty impulse. In recent days, there have been dozens of incidents of infected people hurting people, so the top management appointed him to set up a secret force to specifically curb the situation that was about to get out of control. Unfortunately, they have not yet found the source. They have not yet developed a treatment for the virus. The only thing they can do is isolate the infected people and block the news as much as possible to avoid causing panic. It is precisely because of this that the military officers urgently need police officers like Parra to assist them. At this time, Parra learned that his friend Adawn had also been arrested and quarantined here. Fortunately, his test report showed that he was not infected, but the adjutant was still a little wary. After confirming that Adawn had no symptoms of thirst, he notified the other party that he could leave. As he passed through the corridor, Adawn happened to see the neighbor's elder sister who had regained consciousness. Her heart moved slightly, and she snatched the door key and blocked the guard outside the iron door. Adawn rushed into the elder sister's room with a sprint. He wanted to know what was wrong with the other party. He only heard the eldest sister repeat a few words, "I'm so thirsty," and then said that someone has brought medicine. Before Adawn could figure out the situation, the neighbor's eldest sister suddenly turned red. The next moment, Adawn was pushed to the ground. In the office, Parra heard the noise and rushed into the isolation area immediately. Seeing that his friend was in danger, he quickly took out his pistol and destroyed the door lock. A bullet was shot behind the elder sister, but he found that the other party acted like nothing happened. Parra was about to shoot through the elder sister's head. However, Adawn scolded him and stopped him. Several soldiers took advantage of the situation and finally quelled the commotion. However, Paroxene's worries deepened. He learned from the officer that the virus was spread through blood and could be infected by just biting or scratching. Adawn soon realized this building is simply a concentration camp for infected people. The officer nodded helplessly. This is their only way to suppress the virus. If they want to stop the spread, they must find the real culprit who spread the red pill. The officer once again extended an olive branch, hoping that Adawn and Parra could help assist in the investigation. He could agree to all the requests made by the two of them. Adawn thought of the new house he wanted to build, so he agreed to the officer's request on this condition. Parra knew that Adawn was not completely selfish. He also wanted to contain the virus in time to prevent the people around him from being harmed, so he promised to spare no effort to assist in the investigation. However, what the two of them didn't know was that there was another reason why the officer invited Adawn to join. That is, Aiden's physique was a bit special. His blood contained the madman virus, but he miraculously healed himself after 24 hours. Therefore, the officer decided to keep him by his side as a special case to focus on. At this time, Adawn and Parra were interrogating the neighbor's sister. As long as the virus does not break out, the infected can still stay awake. She remembers that in those days at work, someone sold the red pill to them, saying that they would not feel tired after taking it. As for what happened after the outbreak, he didn't remember it at all. Based on the information provided by his elder sister, Parra retrieved the video of his workplace and finally found a suspicious man. He was sneaking around and was wearing a jacket. There was a special mark carved on his arm. He asked his partner to continue tracking the suspicious man's whereabouts and perhaps find a breakthrough in him. Adawn returned to the police station to report. The senior brother was a little uneasy when he saw that he had returned safely. Along the way, he kept asking about the whereabouts of the female suspect. Only then did he learn that Adawn had undergone isolation examination at a treatment center. Adawn did not notice the strangeness on his senior brother's face, so he invited Parra to a high-end community in the afternoon. This was a property that he had long fancied. Both the community environment and property services are top-notch, and the quality of the neighbors in the community is particularly high. Adawn bought this property on the same day when his head was hot. But before the two of them left the community, Parra received a call from their partner. He found out that the man in black lived in the community that Adawn bought. There was no doubt that the drug seller was a time bomb and could turn the community into a living hell at any time. But Adawn has already signed the contract in the afternoon and wants to check out. The only way is to ask his father to move in later. He and Parra pretend to be husband and wife and live in the community. This way they can also dig out the dealer. Parra thought this was a good idea. Thinking of becoming a couple with Adawn, he felt a little excited for no reason. The next morning, Adawn came to the police station as usual. The senior brother suddenly put away the murder case that day. It turned out that his arm was scratched by the neighbor's sister. Although several days had passed, Adawn was still worried that his senior brother would be infected with the virus, so he immediately took him to the isolation center. The adjutant also paid great attention to this and immediately took a blood sample from senior brother. In order to test whether the other party was infected, he poured a glass of water and then left his senior brother alone in the infirmary. However, when he returned again, he found that his senior brother had already disappeared. It turned out that the other party had hidden the handcuff keys in advance. When everyone left, he sneaked into the isolation area. On the way, he happened to see a strange patient passing by. The senior brother was moved in his heart and followed him in a hurry. He saw the medical staff, sent the patient to the room at the end of the corridor, and waited for the staff to leave. Senior brother pried open the isolation doors one after another and walked into the room. When he saw it, he found that there was a strange place. Behind the plastic curtain of the morgue, there were densely packed corpses. It turned out that the senior brother was not injured at all, and the wounds were opened by himself. The purpose is to follow Adawn to this medical center. Because his mother was also infected with the madman virus, he took the risk to sneak in here in order to find a cure. However, he did not expect that the final destination of the infected is death. The senior brother thought of a risky way. That is to expose what is going on here in the hope of accelerating the development of drugs by expanding influence. Most citizens have heard of the existence of the madman virus for the first time and are still wondering if this is a trick. A low roar suddenly came from the live broadcast screen. Those dead infected people were resurrected. They rushed towards the senior brother like bloodthirsty demons. The alarm bells were blaring in the isolation center, but they did not dare to open the door of the morgue. They could only watch the senior brother fall slowly through the window until the officer heard the noise and came over. He casually took out a high-explosive bomb and threw it into the room. Above is the first or second episode of Happiness. The plot seems to be somewhat similar to the Korean version of the same name drama 4 years ago. Friends who still remember the drama can chat in the comment area. See you next time.